What is going on, gunfighters? Saddle up for another episode of Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast regional rifle champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting, and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Milito. Welcome to Gunfighter Life. The Cartridge Graveyard. Yeah. That's what we're going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life. Cartridges that are resting in peace, mostly. I mean, they're not completely dead. Like, you can still find them, you can still buy them. But there's a lot. And I'm mostly going to stick to modern cartridges. And I'm not going to define what year I decide modern is. It's kind of arbitrary. Right? I'm not going to talk about like the 32 Winchester Special. But that certainly would go in here. I'm talking about more modern cartridges that just didn't make it. When they came out, they were so hyped. It's going to be a game changer. It's radically different. It's revolutionary. And now it's dead. A lot of cartridges like that. Here's one that was almost dead before it even got to shelves. The 30 Super Carry. The 30 Super Carry. What, really? Okay, so you get a vastly more expensive round. You get unknown ballistics. You get not the street cred, not the street proven reliability, not the tons and tons of R&D that go into FBI specs and all the different law enforcement specs, even military stuff. You get rid of all that, and what do you get? An extra 1 or 2 rounds in a magazine. And this is supposed to be, again, a game changer, revolutionary, whatever marketing hype there was. Thankfully it died, because I kind of would have been a little bit sad with the industry if with consumers if it had really taken off. If you're that guy that just touts capacity above everything else, then maybe this is your cartridge. And I'm not saying it's a bad cartridge. It's not a bad. None of these, in fact, I don't think any of them have any inherent flaws that we're going to talk about. It's just that why? Right? Why? To get you to separate from your money, maybe. For the guy that really, really loves the 365 and really wants an extra 2 rounds in the magazine. Okay. For that guy that's really into it and wants this and is willing to deal with the few defensive options in this, because this is for a defensive gun, right? It's called a 30 Super Carry, and you're willing to forego a really good street proven round like a Spear Gold Dot or a even older Federal 9B PLE or something like that for a new experimental thing to trust your life to that may or may not work, then yeah, this one will give you 1 or 2 more rounds in a magazine. If you can't decide between 9mm and 380 and you want something kind of in the middle, right, then there you go. But 30 Super Carry. It's already in the graveyard, I think. Here's another one. And this is a really actually good, well-balanced cartridge. Probably for the average American east of the Mississippi, better than a lot of other options in its kind of genre. The 41 Magnum. The 41 Magnum is all but dead. Right, for the dedicated hand loader, yeah, it's still viable. But when's the last time you were at the local store and saw 41 Magnum? Maybe you did, but it's the exception to the rule, right? And it's a good, well-balanced cartridge. It's right in between 357, not right in between, but it's in between 357 Magnum and 44 Magnum. It's a great cartridge. It's a great whitetail deer hunting cartridge, which is what a lot of American hunters actually hunt. It's a fine cartridge for that. It's probably more practical than the 44 Magnum, but 44 Magnum was way, way more popular. So is 357 Magnum. There are even a couple of guns I think that are still chambered in this. Every once in a while, I think Smith & Wesson and Ruger will do runs in 41 Magnum, because it is a really good cartridge, but it's typically a hand loader's proposition at this point. And it's good ballistically, but is it so good that you're going to forego the ease and availability of brass and good proven projectiles and all that? It was originally designed for the police, and I think I don't really get it for that, because 357 Magnum is fantastic for that, for the revolver time. And this came in not too long before the big swing to semi-auto, so it might have been doomed anyway. But even so, 357 Magnum, that 125 grain load, is legendary among handgun rounds for its stopping power. So I mean, that's a tough nut to crack there. Now, certainly with everything else being equal, sectional density, all the other things, 41 Magnum is more powerful than 357 Magnum. But there's no free lunch. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I think in a medium-sized, fairly heavy carry-sized revolver, 357 Magnum strikes that balance pretty well. I don't want anything more powerful than that, because then I have to deal with the recoil. And yeah, that one round may be more powerful, but what about my shot-to-shot time? What if I'm what if I'm taking on two guys? Right? What about my shot recovery time? So 41 Magnum. Another one that, ironically, I think lost out, the 41 Action Express. A pretty cool round, and I think it has a rebated 9mm rim. If this had caught on, you could more easily convert back and forth with a modular platform from like a 9mm sized rim to a 10mm size. And if you look at 41 Action Express, it's pretty analogous. It's not identical, but you look at it, it's in the realm of 10mm. Which at one time 10mm had one foot in the grave, and thankfully, because it's a good cartridge, it kind of became a zombie cartridge, right, back from the dead. And I'm happy for that, but 41 Action Express did not. Even though I think it has as much or more merit than a 10mm, it just didn't. Here's one that, talk about really, really good and well balanced. The 284 Winchester. Perhaps one of the most well-balanced cartridges for North America. It and one of its very close, the 280 Remington. Both of those. One is a short action, one is a long action. Both are really, really good cartridges. Better than a lot of mainstream cartridges, I think, for a well-balanced North American hunting cartridge. I really like 280 Ackley Improved. That's another zombie cartridge that was kind of dead, but it's been brought back to life in the 280 Ackley Improved. But the 280 Ackley Improved and the 284 Winchester. The 284 Winchester was kind of different in its time in that it was a rebated rim, kind of a short magnum before anybody really appreciated the short magnums, kind of ahead of its time. It's still kind of, I think, touted and used in really discerning competition shooters and things like that. That 7mm is a really good balance for projectiles, but it never really did catch on, especially compared to like the 7mm Rem Mag. But I'll tell you right now, if I didn't have to buy the ammo and you were supplying me with ammo, all of the things being equal, I would go out and hunt with a 284 or a 280 Ackley Improved over a 7 Rem Mag. It just never caught on. But they're great cartridges. Another one that I think The 7 Rem Mag is not a bad cartridge. Another one that's probably as good or better that never really caught on, the 264 Win Mag. And I think what killed this one was this was back in the time before anybody really appreciated the 6.5. I think, again, it was ahead of its time. I think if it would have gotten introduced in the early aughts, it would have been way more successful. If you look at the 264 Win Mag and you look at the 6.5 PRC, you're kind of like, huh, they did that a long time ago. 264 Win Mag is a fantastic cartridge. I think for a lot of things, a lot of people probably would be better picked than a 7mm. Not for everything. I mean, if I was going to Alaska, I would rather have a 7 than a 6.5 Win Mag, or I'm sorry, a 264 Win Mag. But you get the idea. It's a great cartridge. Flat shooting. It's fantastic. Because of how physics work and the weight of the projectile, it shouldn't have very punishing recoil. At least it should have less than the 7 Rem Mag, which in and of itself is not a 375 H&H, but it's a good cartridge. Again, I think before the 6.5 was cool. How about pretty much all the Nosler cartridges, right? The 28 Nosler, the 26 Nosler. They're just beasts of cartridges. If you just want the fast, hot, barrel burning, want to turn a deer inside out, I'm being sarcastic there. Obviously, I'm not going to turn a deer inside out, but you're just the Tim the Toolman Taylor of ballistics guy. More power. The Noslers, they got it, right? If you look at them, they got more power than the comparable cartridges in their arena. They never caught on, right? Because you get to a point where more is just more and more is not better. And I think you get to that point between the 280 Ackley Improved and the 7 Rem Mag. Just the 7 Rem Mag is easier to get ammo for. But it's not easier to get ammo for the Noslers. And why? And I'm not saying they're a bad cartridge. They certainly have a niche, right? If you are the guy that hunts elk in Colorado every year and you have a rangefinder and you hunt off a tripod and you want a big heavy rifle, then 28 Nosler is a fine cartridge. How about the one of the latest hunting game-changing rounds, the 6.8 Western? And this is another kind of head scratcher for me. I'm like, okay. You look at it and you look at the 270 and you say, okay, I don't get it. And obviously, I'm not the only one that didn't get it, because it's literally one of th30 Super Carry where as soon as you start seeing it on shelves, it's already kind of halfway in the grave. Like, why? Why would you not just go with the 270? If you really want to shoot a little bit heavier bullets, there's plenty of other cartridges that will do that. Again, step up to the 7. Not that the 6.8 Western is a bad cartridge, but you look at that, or you look at something that's not really dead. It was another kind of zombie cartridge. It's got its own little dedicated following, so I would not call it in the graveyard. The 270 Wisdom Winchester Short Mag, right? It's a good cartridge. That makes sense because you get the 270 performance in a short action. You look at the 6.8 Western, and you're like, okay, I can shoot a little bit heavier bullets. But a lot of people that are really, really that dedicated, really care that much about BC, not everybody, but that really care that much about BC and sectional density and case overall length and all the nerdy stuff that I like too, they're probably going to hand load. They might even put on their own barrels, in which case, again, you could do that with either one of the 270 Wisdom or with the old school 270, right? You could put on a faster twist barrel. And a lot of times you can load out quite a bit longer to stay within published regs, right? If you blow yourself up, it's your fault, not my fault. But it's a common thing for hand loaders to load out a little bit longer than the case overall length. And it should actually decrease pressure unless you go so far that you're shoving it into the lands and the grooves. So, again, what are we doing here? And I assume I'm not the only one that thinks that because, again, it's already kind of halfway in the grave. If you want a little bit heavier bullet, why not drop down to, heck, a 7.8? 7mm .8 is a great cartridge. You can load all manner of bullets for that if you get a rifle with an appropriate twist rate, which you can. You can load you can load really heavy for caliber bullets in that. And really, you're talking .277 diameter versus .280 diameter bullets or .284 diameter bullets. You're really nitpicking at that point. Like if you're nitpicking between a 277 and a 280 or 284, like in all but the most nerdy of academic circles in ballistics, that really is going to make no difference in So why wouldn't you just step up to the 7s? Anyway, just the 6.8 Western. Again, already kind of in the cartridge graveyard. One that came out a little bit before it. And even when it was coming out, even when it was being hyped, I was like, what? What is going on here? And that is the 224 Valkyrie. Now, there will be a small dedicated subsection that thinks this is fantastic. Like if you're really, really into varmint hunting, like you're really into coyote hunting, well, you're probably using a 22-250 or something. But let's say you're really, really into coyote hunting, you've really gotten into that, and you're the hardcore veteran that's really into AR-15s. It was the first rifle you ever shot in boot camp, and you believed everything, and it's the greatest gun. Any gun with a wood stock is silly, and so you're that guy. You've doubled down, going for broke on the AR-15, and you really want to hunt varmints, and you've decided 224 Valkyrie is that's your thing. Okay, but that's not enough of the market to keep that round afloat. Is it ballistically superior? Yeah, it is. Does it cost a lot more money? Yeah, it does. Part of the thing for me, I love going varmint hunting. I love going to shoot whistle pigs, going to shoot prairie dogs. If I'm going out to do that, I'm going out to drop bodies, right? I'm going out hopefully to shoot hundreds of prairie dogs. I don't want to pay for 224 Valkyrie unless you're just making it rain and the cost per round does not matter to you. But sometimes you get into a thick dog town, you can shoot those little nasty plague-carrying rodents as fast as you can load mags. You really want to be dumping $1 or $2 a round on 224 Valkyrie when you could get decent 223 for a fraction of that? Is it better ballistically, round per round? Yeah, but any of those are going to kill a prairie dog. Even a coyote. 223 is a fine coyote cartridge. Again, is it as good round per round? No. But if I'm going to step up in coyotes, for me, I'd probably just step up to a 243. But I'm not the guy that's married to the AR-15. So, again, the 224 Valkyrie, yeah, I'd say it's in the graveyard. And this, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I'm not picking on these cartridges. All of these cartridges are good cartridges. On paper, ballistically, I didn't pick anyone with any inherent flaws in it. But here's the thing. Gather around gunfighters. If I can share some gunfighter wisdom for you. Here's how I'd say to look at this. Unless you have specifically been looking for a round that doesn't exist and one of these new rounds comes out and you're like, that is what I've been looking for years to fix this issue that I want to fix, then that round's probably not for you. Right? There are many, many rounds in the AR that are ballistically superior. In fact, I'd say most are ballistically superior to the 5.56 223. And I'm just going to pick the AR because it's a very popular platform, it's fun and affordable to shoot. Well, you go with, let's say, 224 Valkyrie, it's no longer fun and affordable to shoot. You go with 6.8 SPC, which ballistically is a fantastic round. It's not even dead, but for the vast majority of people, most people, let's be honest, with the AR-15 are shooting paper. They're shooting high volume of practice. They're going out to have fun. And for that, why? Why would you consider any of the other rounds? Or let's say one that's actually ballistically probably superior to the 308. Now calm down. And it's a dead cartridge. I didn't even mention it. It's so dead. And that is the 30 Thompson Center, the 30 TC. A great cartridge. In fact, it is the daddy of very popular cartridges of the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 6mm Creedmoor. But it itself is kind of dead. Can it achieve similar ballistics to a 308 in a smaller package? Yes, it can. But here's the thing. 308 is kind of the standard and has been a long time. Most rifles produced are produced in the short action and even less so the old standard action, the 30-06 length action. If you get something that's a little bit smaller, you're probably getting a rifle that'll fit the 308 anyway. So then you kind of scratch your head. The reason it became popular in the 6.5 Creedmoor is you're loading the smaller case with a longer bullet. If you look at the velocity of the 6.5 Creedmoor, it's actually pretty pedestrian. It's actually pretty vanilla when it comes to velocities. But if you're dealing with a 308 length action anyway, even though theoretically, the .30 Thompson Center was ballistically superior. You get similar performance in a smaller package. You're already probably getting a .308 package. And you kind of scratch your head and think, why would I go through all that and forego the vast availability and not even street, and this hunting performance and battlefield performance of the .308, right? Where I can go out, and .308 is of the full power rifle cartridges the most affordable. Why would I forego all that for a slightly shorter case when I have to get a rifle that's probably chambered in the full length, or not even the full length, the short action .308 size anyway? You get what I'm saying. So the advice is, unless you've really been looking for something to do this thing, like let's say you're really into long-range precision shooting and you are really at the top of your game with the 6.5 Creedmoor, and you think this 6.5 Creedmoor is great, but if it had similar downrange performance, similar BCs, and less felt recoil, I could track my shots better, because sometimes I have trouble tracking my shots. And then the 6mm Creedmoor comes out and you're like, oh, there you go. Right? That makes sense. That's one where the new cartridge makes sense. But let's say you have a 7 Rem mag and you love your 7 Rem mag, and then they come out with a 28 Nosler. Do you really think that the hunting you've been doing will be vastly more successful if you go from the 7 Rem mag to the 28 Nosler? Does that really make sense for you? Like, for a very tiny subsection, the answer will be yes. But for the vast majority, it will be no. So a big purpose in doing this episode is not to rag on these cartridges. They're not bad cartridges. But I just don't want you to, unless you just are the guy that just likes to try experimental stuff and likes to hand load for wild cartridges, in which case, yeah, have fun, right? Capitalism. If you have the disposable income and you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You do you. But for practicality standpoint, from a gunfighting standpoint, this is gunfighter life. Talk about like practical guns, practical calibers, practical setups for hunting, for defense. For most people, when you hear the term new, game-changing, revolutionary, whatever buzzwords they throw out there, take a deep breath before you go down the road of spending all the money on a new rifle, a new optic, a new cartridge that may or may not be even readily available in a year or two. Really consider. I'm not even telling you not to. I'm just telling you to really consider when you hear these new cartridges come out. Does it make sense, and is it going to be around in a couple of years? Because the cartridge graveyard is filled with good cartridges and cartridges with good intentions. Anyway, I think that kind of gets the point across for this episode. Tactical tip of the day: sandbags. If you are a Marine or in the Army, likely you cringe when you hear the term sandbags. You think of the long hours of working parties, or maybe the time you got in trouble and had to fill sandbags or carried sandbags or whatever. But sandbags are practical. There's a reason they are part of the military, right? If you're into prepping, you're into preparedness, a sandbag. Sandbags are good for a lot of things. It's hard to find something as cheap and affordable and easy to fill and move around that stops bullets as good as a sandbag. It's a reason they've been around a long time. I would hate to guesstimate the amount of sandbags that I filled in Iraq and the amount of total sandbags that the Americans left in Iraq. Right? That would be an interesting number, to know how many sandbags got filled in the global war on terror. And how many of those actually stopped a bullet that would have went into one of our Marines or GIs' heads or bodies or torsos or arm or leg, right? How useful those are. And they're cheap. They're cheap. Maybe think about having a few of those. They're not expensive. They're highly practical, even if hopefully you never are on the receiving end of gunfire. They're also really good for sighting in rifles or sighting in a handgun. A sandbag is kind of like a sandbag rest is kind of known for being a good, steady rest. Anyway, sandbags. That's your tactical tip of the day. Oh, actually, another one. If you don't want to get a sandbag, another really good thing to use, a bag of rice. If you want something to sight in on, a set of rifle on, or something like it, a bag of rice that comes in like one of those nice, I don't want to say nice, but nicer than just the cheap plastic, but like the woven synthetic or the old school burlap sacks of rice. They can be really good for stuff like that. Anyway, hopefully what you care about more than obscure cartridges, the tactical verse of the day. Buy as though they did not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it, for the form of this world is passing away. Reminds me of another verse. Naked. You came into this world, and naked you're going to leave this world. Remember what's really important. I don't care how cool of guns you have. I don't care how many guns you have. I don't care how many thousands of rounds and literal tons of sandbags you have at your bunker. When you die, none of that stuff's going with you. Remember what's really important. Eternal salvation. I don't care if you win 100 gunfights and you die and go to hell. You missed the point. Don't miss the point. Go to Christ. With that, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.